Racing
on Off the Ball.
brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
All right, you're very welcome along to this week's Friday Night Racing. We're here every Friday afternoon across all of our social channels, and of course again on the radio on Off the Ball every Friday evening from 8 o'clock. Our guest this week is Gillian O'Loughlin, who's a dietitian. How are you, Gillian? You're very welcome.
Good. Thank you very much for asking me, Joe.
Johnny Ward also here. How are you, Johnny?
You're all good?
Yeah. Anything going on in your life?
I just find it hard to divorce you now from Richard Cooper's take on you. Considering he's done two of you now in the recent, and he's getting you so nailed on that it's like like the first time I did ever spoke to Mark Lawrence on the phone, I couldn't think of him but through the après-match prism, and it's getting like that with you as well.
Great.
Richard is so good.
There you go. So I expect you to perform very well today then.
Yeah. Is he good in your eyes?
Well, I mean, obviously I can't see it.
Did you like his own Sheehan?
I thought his own Sheehan was spectacular. So if I to assume his own Sheehan is as good as his version of me, then he was obviously very good.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny. You can check that out on all of our social channels. Gillian, you're here because the Jockey Pathway programme has been launched. How recently a launch is this? What?
Well, that pathway's going now about a year and a half.
Right.
So we've been flying. It's really taking off. It's going great. But I suppose what's happened now is that aside that, or in conjunction with that, we've brought out catering guidelines for racecourses.
Okay, so that's the new part of this.
That's the new part, yeah.
Tell us about the guidelines and why do racecourses need this? And
Well, I suppose I've been working with jockeys for 15 years now, and always when we do education with jockeys, the thing that comes out is it's all very well you telling me this, this is what I should eat on race day, but when I go to the races, this is what I'm getting, and I have nowhere to go. And really what was happening with jockeys was they were just starving themselves, having a few jellies and a few biscuits or whatever at the race courses, and then stopping off on the takeaway on the way home. And so I'm trying to educate them on how to make weight in a much easier way than that, than seesawing the whole time with their weight. So that's really where it came out of. So as I say, for 15 years this has been ongoing, and we've been nipping away and trying to get changes made. But I suppose a few things, the stars started to align when I got two students, Ruth Drennan and Esme Ward from UCD, and we did an audit of all the race courses in Ireland, because before that we never knew what was happening in the race courses. We knew anecdotally, but not actual any evidence to say this is what's going on. So once we got that, we were able to meet with the race course owners, and we sort of sold these changes to them and did up guidelines, and it's been really positive.
What did the audit show? What was the...
I suppose overall the girls were fantastic. They over a 2-month period they went around Ireland in their car, drove around all the different race courses within 2 months, and did 25 out of the 26. We missed Bellewstown, unfortunately, because it's only 3 times a year. What they found, they graded it, so anywhere from needs guidance was the first level, then bronze, then silver, then gold and platinum. So unfortunately the highest score was silver out of all of the 25, and only 2 achieved that.
Right.
So not fantastic, unfortunately. 38% required guidance is what it showed.
Specifically, what type of stuff was it? Was it sandwiches? Was it white bread sandwiches? Is that the best case scenario?
It differed, to be honest. I mean, some of them, the ones that got silver, were even providing a hot meal, which is exactly what we wanted. And I'm sure you've seen, I don't know if you've ever been in the weigh rooms in England, but they have a lovely spread, and it's done really, really well. And I suppose jockeys were racing over in England and then coming back here and saying, why aren't we getting this? Yeah. So it ranged from 10 cents for a Jaffa cake to, paying for your water, to right up to decent food and getting hot meals provided. So very broad range, really.
And obviously completely different
totally
scale.
Different. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's difficult, and it's not a criticism, really. It was... The science has changed a lot. We know now more about what jockeys should be eating to try and make weight properly. Before, it used to be jellies in between races and biscuits and, anything to get the sugar levels up because you were feeling a bit down. But now we know how many calories you burn off in a race, and it's not that many, believe it or not. So it's really about, looking at what's appropriate for jockeys to have in the weigh room, or to be able to eat during races.
How many calories does somebody burn off in a race?
43 calories in a 2-mile race.
Right.
Which is not what you'd expect.
No, I thought this was
I have to say, even as a dietitian, I thought it was more.
Yeah. So why is it not more?
I suppose the horse is doing a lot of the work, the jockey's hanging on, and it is, from a point of view of muscle strength, it is really, it is a difficult, 2 miles. But I suppose calorie-wise, you're just not burning off that many.
Okay.
Which is what we thought. What actually came out in the studies that we've done is that they're probably burning off a lot more calories when they're not on a race day, because they spend a lot of time in the car travelling from one racetrack to another. So really, that's probably, you know, mucking out and you know, running and exercising and then riding out is probably more energetic, or more, you know, you're expending more energy that way.
So how did you find all that stuff out? Like, is that...
So we, through DCU and through Giles Warrington and Dr. Sarah Jane Cullen, we did a lot of research into all the different areas. So Sarah Jane looked at energy expenditure and used a Cosmed and different types of equipment to try and see how much energy was being expended. And then I looked using a sense cam to see exactly what jockeys were eating, which was fascinating because it was a camera. And we always realised that unfortunately food diaries aren't very accurate.
That's the thing, you always forget what you eat.
Absolutely, and selective memory, unfortunately. so not great. So I kept a camera on they were apprentice jockeys and student jockeys, and it was fascinating. We also did it with footballers and with just the general student population, and there was a difference with some jockeys. There was a difference of up to nearly 1,000 calories of what they hadn't told me they were eating,
right,
and what they had actually tried to write down and remember.
Right.
But one of them went to the cinema, I think, had a big bag of popcorn with lots of butter. So, you know, things like that, and it's just really trying to educate jockeys that it's sometimes the little snacky things that are the things that are going to push you over the edge from a calorie point of view.
Was it Gaelic footballers or soccer players, or...?
They were Gaelic footballers.
So you could compare and contrast and kind of see...
Yeah, now it was a very small study. It was a master's I was doing in DCU, so, you know, we had, I think, how many did we have in total? I think it was about 30.
Right.
So, you know, but still, it gave us a good indication. And,
totally.
And what was interesting from them was the one guy, I think, was, without breaking any confidentiality rules, I hope, I won't mention any names, was opening up the fridge and had lots of protein balls in the fridge and was every 5 minutes having another one, thinking that's free. You know, it's a free calories, but, and totted up the calories very quickly. So it's about education and trying to change behaviour, you know, and trying to get them to eat foods that are more appropriate.
Those protein bars aren't free?
No, I'm afraid not.
There's Homer and he's like power sauce or whatever. Like, a lot of it is crap, basically. Yeah. Like, I guess you're looking for them to eat natural foods.
Really, what you're looking for them to do is to, I mean, hopefully, if you can, sort of lower calorie foods. So the bottom of the food pyramid, if you can picture the food pyramid.
Fruit,
I mean, most jockeys, when they come into me, their pyramid's upside down. They're living in the kind of the treats sort of section, which unfortunately is supposed to be a treat. So really, what you're trying to do is, get them to have like the 5 to 7 fruit or veg a day. In the study I did back in 2013, you were lucky if you got a jockey to eat 1 or 2 pieces of fruit or veg during the day. That's changed considerably now, which is much better. So really, lots of sort of, you know, cereals, grains, things that will actually keep them feeling fuller for longer, but aren't going to give them huge amounts of calories. So also then, obviously, protein is really important as well, but the type of protein is important. So trying to get them to eat things like oily fish, which would have lots of omega-3s, you know, meat that isn't processed, so it's not full of salt and fat, that it's got, you know, it's lean protein. And obviously, when you're making weight, the most important thing to do is to try and increase your protein intake a little bit, so you're keeping your muscles strong while reducing down your carbohydrates a little bit. So years ago, the guidelines always kind of said, oh, it's, you know, depending on how much exercise you do, 6 to 7, you know, grams of carbohydrate per kilo. And for a jockey, you're talking probably about half that.
Right.
Because they are so much smaller and they're trying to, you know...
Go back to the guidelines, sorry. So that was 6 to 7... what per kilo?
Oh, grams of carbohydrate. Yeah, per
in each
kilogram.
meal or per day, or
no, per person, like for the jockeys or for the athlete.
Okay, that would be a daily recommended allowance.
Yeah, but unfortunately, when you look at it, that was a very broad recommendation for athletes in general. So across different types of sports like footballing, GAA. I mean, it's a different sport. Jockeys are very specific in what they're doing. They're trying to make weight. Boxers obviously make weight, but they have the luxury of being able to, you know, weigh in 2 days beforehand and can then, you know, refuel or whatever afterwards. So jockeys are doing this 24/7. You know, it's a really quite a cruel sport in one way.
So in season for a jockey, what would a good day of...
Right, so what you're trying to do is, I suppose, flat jockeys, to be very general about it, you're looking at around the 1,800 calorie mark. Now, obviously that changes depending on your height and your weight and your sex as well, because females will be different to males. So really you're looking at, if a broad sort of guideline will be around 1,800 calories. So of that, what you're trying to do is go for about 1.5 to maybe 1.8 grams of protein per kilo. So I suppose an average meal, what I try to do is get them to, if they're not racing, to have their kind of 3 healthy meals, so their breakfast, their lunch, and then their dinner. I mean, again, a lot of it is damage limitation. When somebody comes to me, first of all, when the jockey comes in, they may be just eating absolute rubbish. So you're trying to just, okay...
Give us some examples of that without naming names, but like what?
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think the worst one, the one that sticks in my head most, which was the most kind of, I suppose, there's fad diets out there as well that kind of get taken up now and again. I mean, there was one jockey came into me and he was having 4 cans of Red Bull and, 4 bowls of porridge and 10 cans of Red Bull every day. And I said, are you not getting the shakes?
10 cans of Red Bull?
10 cans of Red Bull, the poor guy.
Caffeine.
And when you think about it, when you actually analysed it, it was a lot of calories too. It was about 2,700 calories. So, I mean, while he was doing himself no favours, he thought he was doing good because he wasn't eating an awful lot, he was starving, but he wasn't really getting enough calories or any nutrients at all really out of that, except a bit of sugar and a bit of caffeine, a little bit of fibre from the porridge.
Yeah, four bowls of porridge.
So what I try to do is get the jockey to start off with a high fibre breakfast, because breakfast, if you think of the word, is breaking the fast. You know, you've been fasting overnight, so breakfast is nearly the most important meal of the day. If you can try and put in something high fibre, gets the metabolism working, gets the, you know, your brain ticking.
What, like?
Well, like porridge, like Weetabix, like a cereal bar on the run. If they just won't, if they can't get up early enough to, and they're up very early in fairness to them, if they can't manage a breakfast, then bring something with them, even a piece of fruit, anything to just start the metabolism.
I remember
working.
Pat Kenny had somebody on a few months ago, and he said that breakfast as the most important meal of the day is a complete fad, that it's actually better to fast early in the morning. So I was quite curious as to what
they do talk about that in running and certain things like that, but to be honest, if you think about it, the muscles need energy, and I mean that needs glycogen, and glycogen has been depleted overnight. If you don't replace it in the morning, then you're a petrol without a car without petrol. So you really need to put something in. So you know, and especially with a jockey, if you think about it, they're going out to a yard, they're going to muck out you know, 6 or 7 lots, ride out 6 or 7 lots as well. So you know, it's a hard job. You need something in there, and that does kickstart the metabolism. And in jockeys, what they're trying to do is make sure things are, you know, being metabolized. So at lunchtime, then I suppose a lot of jockeys will go to the yard. They'll have nothing for the start, and then probably maybe breakfast rolls sometimes down at the garage.
Yeah.
So it's trying to break that chain. Now I have to say, I've had a course there recently. We did a pathway course for CPD for jockeys, and I asked them all, there was about 8 of them in the class, do you eat breakfast? And each one of them are now eating breakfast that's high fibre, and they're feeling the benefits. So
you eat breakfast?
I do, yeah. Porridge every day.
Yeah.
I'm amazed the amount of people who just don't eat breakfast.
I know, I don't know how they could, because I couldn't survive without my breakfast. Yeah.
I've gotten into the habit completely of not eating straight away, but eating after like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Well, that's fine, so long as you're putting something in earlier on. I mean, what happens, unfortunately, if you go for a long time without anything, I mean, your body really wants sort of energy every 4 hours, or some kind of food every 4 hours. So if you go for too long, then you kind of crash, and you'll just go for anything that's nearby, and especially if it smells nice and is full of calories.
Yeah.
So it's trying to sort of train your body to you know, get into that routine. And so then I suppose eating on the run is the big issue with jockeys as well. I mean, they're living out of garages a lot of the time, so I do a sheet for them that gives them, you know, ideas of what they can choose when they go into a garage.
Yeah, like it must be interesting, because they're not your average athletes.
No, not at all.
Like they don't run like in a race, so it's more about muscles and kind of keeping weight down, obviously.
Yeah, well, we have Wayne now, who's our strength and conditioning coach, and he's doing fantastic work with them, and he's changing the whole myths around exercise and that. I'm sure you remember the talk you had with
It's amazing how like backward I think we were, because like before Wayne Middleton came along, I think the jockeys have really like embraced how helpful this is. Like the likes of Billy Lee, I spoke to him, and he struggles with his weight, but he said, you know, if we'd known this like even 10, 20 years ago, the difference it would have made for people who basically they didn't really know the right kind of stuff to do in the gym, or they weren't going to the gym.
They used to walk for 3 hours.
Yeah, and starve themselves.
People used to say, oh, you know, the only way to lose fat is to walk for hours, and it's ridiculous now when we know that it's not true. But yeah, no, having that. So really, it is a balance of diet and exercise. So Wayne does the exercise part, and then they come to me, and I give them a plan. And so again, as I say, initially it's reviewing the person in front of you, saying, okay, what's your lifestyle like? Every jockey is so different, and that's the other thing, that like there isn't a sort of a one-fits-all kind of a recipe for them, really. And so you have to really meet them individually and go through, okay, well, how many races are you having? You know, some of them may not work in the afternoon, so they could go...
Do you smoke?
Do they smoke?
Yeah,
a lot do smoke, and that does come up a lot when we're trying to tell jockeys you're athletes. You know, athletes don't smoke.
It's funny when you go to the races and you go in.
I know, and
outside the weigh room, you've like 4 or 5 jockeys. Some of them top jockeys, just having a fag together, and you're like,
yeah. See, I suppose a lot of them are trying to do something that's against nature and get their weight so low and suppress the appetite. And
does it really suppress appetite, though? I mean, like, is that not just a marketing tool? And they were like, oh, this is toasted, and like,
I don't know, I never smoked, but I think it does. It seems to help, but at the same time, it's not the best thing for you, and it's not going to help performance.
Yeah,
so.
But it's remarkable how many jockeys smoke, genuinely. Yeah, and like I can't like. I'd imagine in a finish when you are breathing quite heavily. I imagine your lungs should be in better shape than having to smoke. You know.
I know. Well, that's the next thing. We've got the diet sorted now.
Yeah, that's next.
We'll challenge that one next.
So when you're saying, I understand that you're going to be hungry and you're going to end up at a garage.
Yeah.
What are they actually going in there and they're allowed to get?
So I suppose what I do is give them a few examples of what they can choose. So what I would say is go for something that's like a fruit pot. So, you know, what you want is something sweet. They're generally craving something a bit sugary. So to try and, you know, not go for the Mars bar or the, you know, the full sugar sort of double-sized Twix, and go for something that's a little bit less. So something high in fibre, basically. So a cereal bar. And there's so many cereal bars, as you know, nowadays. The other thing
Are they not crap as well, though? Like?
Some of them are better than others. I mean, you know, the ones, again, it's about label reading and trying to get into knowing how many grams of carbohydrate or, you know, what's a high sugar one. And they all have the red sign now on the ones that are full of sugar, so it's easy enough to see. But, yeah, what I'd recommend is something with nuts and with grains in them. So if you have the nuts and the grains, then you're not going too far wrong.
Right.
The other thing you have to be really careful of in the garage is the array of drinks that are on offer. I mean, I always say to them, try and eat your calories rather than drink them. Because unfortunately, there's some guys that come into me, like that poor guy on the Red Bull, drinking about, you know, 4 bottles of full sugar Lucozade, when they're not running marathons, you know, and that is not good for their teeth, it's not good for their weight, it's not good for anything really, and it's expensive. Yeah. So again, going for water. So I have a full display on all the different sugar contents of all the different drinks, and just try and, you know, educate them on that as well. And obviously trying to go for something with milk, something milky based if you could, because milk is isotonic. It will give them protein, it'll give them calcium, and that obviously fits in with the whole bone health as well. So that's really important, because we found as well in our studies that bone health isn't necessarily the best either. So we now have Arthur, who is he's a PhD student, and he's doing DEXA scans on all the jockeys, and we're going to follow that for the next 4 years and see how they get on.
Right.
And see what the bone
so
health
it's groundbreaking
like.
Stuff, really. Like.
It is. It's fantastic. I have to say, really, you know, through the research combined with the pathway, it's really ticking all the boxes, and we're looking after jockeys better.
How did the Racecourse respond? Were they hostile? Were they defensive, or were they? Because I've seen jockey spats with racecourses on social media where they're like, you know, I had to pay €2.50 for a cup of tea or whatever, and
I know.
I kind of have some sympathy for the Racecourse, but I think it's they get a lot of media rights money. I think it's something they need to get right for the participants.
Oh, absolutely, sport, yeah. And as I say, these guys are entertaining us. We need to look after them.
Exactly.
So I think initially I would have been saying the exact same thing, but after meeting with the racecourse owners, I know there are, and after doing the audit, you know, there's a lot of challenges that they face as well. Everybody wants them to be looked after well. So I think it's not a huge amount of money, and they've realised that now because we've done these guidelines. The assistance is there, the guidance is there. Also, I was at Leopardstown there last weekend, and we had the launch, and it was just superb. I mean, the food was just amazing, and the jockeys' eyes were out in sticks, and it was great. And I think Punchestown the week before that had done a fantastic job as well. So I think even just, you know, racecourses, seeing how other racecourses are doing it will in itself create a kind of a bit of momentum and get things moving a little bit better as well.
And you'll find then jockeys will be very quick to go on social media to praise them as well.
Exactly.
You know?
And
they
that's
don't actually ask for that much.
Yeah. And we did a survey of the 125, I think it was 125 jockeys we questioned, and we asked them, what do you want? Because obviously I'm not the food police. I don't want to go in and start taking away all the jellies and all the Jaffa cakes and everything else. So really it's about, again, giving choice to the jockeys and saying, okay, you know, I'm telling you this is what you should be eating. You don't have to. But if, you know, I mean, not all jockeys struggle. So some of them do need the sugary things. So, yeah. So it's about choice, really, and just giving them the choice there to take what they want.
All right, you're listening to Friday Night Racing, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the new Twitter account at HRI Racing. Gillian O'Loughlin is our guest this week. Can we come back a little bit from the bit where it's the on-course catering? Were you pushing an open door with the jockeys themselves when somebody comes to you? I guess they are looking for help, so at least you've reached that point already. But before that,
I suppose what came into action about 4 years ago now, we brought in the minimum weight setting programme. So what that meant was, before you got your apprentice licence, you had to come and see me. I'd assess the jockey, and I'd check their weight, their height, their body fat with skin folds. We have a DEXA scanner, which is great. But before that was that, and then we'd also I'd sort of sit down with them and say, okay, right, you know, this is realistically what you're not going to be 6 stone, you know, and actually look at what was feasible, and look at their diets obviously as well, and say, okay, right, your diet is really not the best. We could do a lot of changes here and make big changes, and that then motivates them to try and work with you. So that was an open door. That was great, because they were coming to you, they were young. I mean, I've had pony racers who started coming to us now as well, which is great. So you're getting them at 13, which is even younger. So but no, they'd come in, you'd assess them, do all that, set up a meal plan, send them off for 6 weeks, and then they come back to you. So for those that weren't struggling struggling with their weight, it was really about performance nutrition and just giving them tips on what they could do to maximise the performance. And for those then obviously that were struggling, you were there to assist them, and I have lots of photos of their meals on my WhatsApp and whatever. So it's having that link and having someone to be able to talk to and say, right, okay, that looks a bit big. Because a lot of it sometimes is they might be eating well, but they're actually eating too much of the good stuff. So being able to see what's going on makes a big difference. So that started, and so every apprentice coming out then had the information. Now, unfortunately, it is a culture, obviously, and then they'd meet the professional jockeys, exactly, who are keeping their weight within an inch of where they should be, and they're going, God, but they don't eat anything, so I should do that. So it's I suppose it just takes time, and it is behaviour change that you're trying to work on, but it is definitely getting there. I can really see it now. Because
it's such a cutthroat industry that I just assumed that everybody who is in it would be trying to cut each other's throat in as many scientific ways as possible, and here's like a tiny fraction of a percent that is going to improve their...
It's not like that, though. Like, I don't think it is. Like, they just help each other out in that regard. They'd help each other out in every regard except getting on a horse or winning a race, I think. Like, so if they could help, like, if I had won over the other lad, it wouldn't be... I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like you're sharing the car to the races, so it's like we should go to the gym together or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of...
But there's still the stories of very high-profile jockeys who come in and told us that their diet is crap. And that's what I mean. It's like, so why aren't they kind of going...
I suppose it's... trying to change old habits. I mean, the senior jockeys, what I found now is, I mean, the very first jockey I ever met, which was the story I was going to tell you, Adrian McGoldrick just rang me up one day and said, I have this guy who needs to lose a bit of weight. Didn't tell me he was a jockey. And so anyway, rolls up, and Johnny Worsh, I won't mind me saying his name because I'm always talking about it. So he rolls up anyway, and I was like, oh, you're a jockey? So he was just... Yeah, he was trying every fad diet in the book, and so went through it, and he'd never actually thought, okay, right, oh, so this is just like simple, healthy eating kind of thing. And had never really thought that was a feasible thing to follow. So put him on a plan. He couldn't believe how easy it was. He could eat and he could actually get his weight down. Now, you know, they will still struggle and all the rest of it. And, you know, but at the same time, he is the biggest advocate now. And he was the one who really got all this kick-started in the first place. So, yes, there are some that, you know, have their routine, are happy with it and won't change no matter what you tell them, or no matter how many DEXA scans you give them and show them their bones aren't the best or whatever. You know, they just still want to do what they want to do, and that's fine. But I think where we are trying to aim this is at the new apprentices coming in. They can see the benefits. They'll bring that with them. They're doing really, really well with both the exercise and the diet now, and I think eventually it'll just continue on.
You were talking about the myths earlier on about the walking is the way you lose weight. The muscle weighs more thing. I mean, does muscle weigh more? Is that?
Well, it does, but it's an active tissue, whereas fat just sits there and has a great time and slows you down, unfortunately. So if you have too much body fat, then, you know, your aim is to try and cut that down. If you have more muscle, then when you're sitting down watching TV later on at night, you're still taking over at a higher rate and you're burning off more calories. So it's a balance. Yeah, you don't want to be pumped up, obviously, but you want to just have enough muscle that you're burning off the calories.
This has turned from, like, being for jockeys, as in for us, to, like how do we get...
Private consultation.
Jared's just looking at how do we get in better shape? Like, you know, no comments.
Again, it's like how much exercise do they do to get to peak physical fitness, and is there a tipping point? There clearly is a tipping point where it tips too much, and you know, you don't want to look like Cristiano Ronaldo, but they do want to
get fit. And you see, what we found was, which we were shocked at, was that a lot of the jockeys were riding fit but not actually aerobically fit.
Right.
And that was a bit of a shocker for us, I have to say, because we thought, well, they must be fit. But, you know, do a beep test and they weren't doing that well in it. So, so really, yeah, about, number one, fueling for exercise as well and making sure they're doing that correctly so they have enough fuel then to actually do the exercise properly. So, yeah, I mean, it's a combination of both, but they are improving a lot now.
How many jockeys, like, run regularly or do, like...
Oh, a lot of jockeys run. And a lot of jockeys will still run in a sweatsuit and you know, turn the heaters up. And but, I mean, that's really what pushed us to try and get this in, because now at least it's consistent. They know that they can have a meal when they get there, that they don't have to. So what we're trying to do is get them to keep within sort of 2 pounds of their normal weight. So okay, they may... I don't think we'll ever cut out sweating altogether, but
is sweating bad?
You're not sweating too much.
Like
it is bad because unfortunately being dehydrated. Have you ever been dehydrated? Yeah, you feel absolutely crap. You get hangry and you get and it's not good for performance at the end of the day.
But like, how do jockeys genuinely, how do they do it when we had Dunick on, he hadn't eaten in like 36 hours at that stage or whatever. How can you perform? These are elite sportsmen and they go, can you imagine like playing a game of football but not having eaten for the previous 24 hours? You wouldn't start. Remember when like Mourinho wouldn't play players during Ramadan because he's like, well, if they're observing Ramadans, because you can't be at your...
Yeah,
but jockeys,
at your
this is
peak.
normal, and it's...
I know, well, there is a level of habituation that they do actually get used to it, we think, from what we've tried to look at, because we did do studies where we actually, you know, got them to come in a dehydrated state and try to sort of do sort of skillful tests and things like that to see would they actually have problems, but we couldn't really put our finger on it or couldn't nail it down as much as we'd like to, possibly because we didn't have enough of them to study. But it is, yeah, I mean, it is what we'd like to do, I suppose, really is long-term, to do a long-term study for those jockeys that have retired to see, is it having an effect on them?
Yeah.
I mean, the short-term effects we do know are things like hangry, you know, narky, not feeling good, you know, tingles in their fingers, you know, and I mean, unfortunately, if you think about it, you know, if you're dehydrated, your brain inside your head is like a walnut inside a shell, because if you dehydrate yourself so much that you're crisp, then you're getting rid of all that fluid around your brain, around, you know, I mean, you know, your urine's going dark, so dark that you can't give a pee sample, you know, that's not healthy, you know, it's building up all the toxins in your body, so I suppose, yeah, we don't really know because there's only so much testing you can do.
Did you find much evidence of flipping, as they call it in the States?
In the States?
Yeah, well, sorry, what does they call it? I don't know what they call it over here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Forced
here,
vomiting,
I was actually
suppose.
in Monmouth, actually, at the over there at a conference one time. We went in and I couldn't believe on the door it had flipping cubicle, which was shocking. Yeah,
it's horrific.
It's horrific.
Built into the day-to-day existence.
Yeah.
Right.
Awful, awful. So there's not as much of that, I don't think, here. Now maybe it's just they're not telling me, but I don't think so. It's not acceptable, and we don't promote it, obviously. And you know, to have a sign on the door to say this is acceptable, I think is really bad. Yeah, awful. But no, I think the jockeys here are.
I've never heard of a prevailing culture over here, but I've known in the
I know in
States
England it's a little bit more so.
Yeah.
But here I don't think so. I don't know why it's not as much, but I'm hoping it's maybe because they've got support.
Also,
I know in America there's very little
do.
support
Yeah.
from a nutritionist or from dietitians or whatever. Yeah.
So just to Johnny Murtaugh strolls in, that's the very first time you've ever had any
So
interest
that's what
in the
started
racing.
the whole thing. He was the catalyst, and he just turned around and he said, you know, Tiger Woods has his, you know, his psychologist and has his dietitian and has his strength and conditioning coach, and I've got nobody. I'm doing all this myself. So so he was really the person who got myself and Giles from he was in DCU at the time, and Adrian McGoldrick, and we started looking at this and saying, right, we need to do some research and find out what's going on here and try and help these jockeys, because you know every other sport has their team and jockeys don't. So that's where it all started.
And the science of that evolves season by season in other sports as well. You kind of realise exactly what type of body shape you're supposed to have. You want to be a rugby player, a Gaelic footballer, and whether or not speed and power, all that kind of stuff is important. So presumably that's all changed for you guys as well as you've got deeper into the research.
Oh, absolutely. The more you dig, the more you find, I suppose. And as they say, science is written with a pencil, so you can rub it out. So, you know, you're constantly, you know, looking at other things. And we have lots of research projects on the go at the moment. So we have a mental health study as well going on, because what we did find in one of the smaller studies, again, was that there was quite a high level of depression in jockeys. And that's not really surprising when you think if they're starving themselves a lot of the time, then of course you're going to feel miserable.
Yeah. You did have Adrian on. Those figures were absolutely staggering.
They were really shocking.
I don't know if you remember the actual figures, but it was completely out of
kilter. In case I get it wrong, but it was really, I think it was...
About 50%.
It was about 50%.
Like insane. You know, and sports people, because they live purportedly healthy lives, should be less inclined to be depressed. Yet jockeys...
Because they're exercising, of course. Yeah.
It was quite the opposite.
But I think a lot of it, if you look, I mean, you know, there's a lot of evidence coming out now about the microbiome, and that, you know, if you aren't eating a good, healthy diet, then, you know, the bacteria then can lead to, you know, you can have issues with the gut-brain axis and issues with depression. And
it's not going to wash with a trainer. Like, if you lose a race, you're not going to say, well, I'm suffering from mental health. So it was staggering, I thought.
Yeah, it was. And that's why this study has now taken off, and he's doing great work. So Lewis is working on that, and then we have another guy working at on physiology as well, and looking at more exercises for jockeys in particular, you know, specific ones for them. So so there's a lot of research going on, and it is informing our sport.
Do you feel like it'll be quite a while before you get that troop of jockeys who are coming through as apprentices now and see the long-term benefits that you can compare and contrast? So you know, it's clear that, and it's logical that everything you're doing makes sense, but the empirical evidence that actually it is, you know, in recovery time after injuries, more availability for race days, all the type of things that jockeys are going to go, well, that's money in my back pocket.
Well, I think a lot of the jockeys that we're seeing coming through, both Wayne and myself, we're seeing them getting a lot more winners. So I think that speaks for itself. A lot of it is down to the jockey and how focused they are and how keen they are to get along. And I suppose part of that is following the right diet and being disciplined. And it does take a lot of discipline to do that. I mean, you're getting up at the crack of dawn every day, miserable, rainbow weather,
Yeah.
and trying to get the race and trying to make your way. So I'm seeing it already. I think in society in general, people are more aware of what is healthy eating and trying to help that way, and that is helping them with my job.
Even the garage options have improved from
Exactly.
5-10 years ago to the point where they're able to.
I mean, you would never have
stuff.
seen a fruit pot with a bit of yogurt and a bit of muesli on top. I mean, that wouldn't have, it was, you know, your chicken rolls or your breakfast rolls and that. So that
Are
is
they allowed
helping.
brown rice and all that kind of stuff? Like, is that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, that's what I'd be promoting, really. I mean, again, there's a lot of misinformation out there about the low-carb diets, and you're saying, I mean, I have some people come in to me saying, yeah, no, I don't eat potatoes, and no, I don't eat rice, and I don't eat pasta. And I always say, well, why are you cutting those out? Oh, I'm on a low-carb diet. But then they go on to tell me that they had about 10 biscuits and, you know, a few Lucozades and whatever else. So it's about educating them where are the carbs. And I mean, yes, keep off the white powder, as in the white stuff, as in the sugar, but don't give up your potatoes and your, you know, I mean, obviously cut them down and have the right amount of them, but brown rice, the brown pasta, potatoes with the skins, just simple things like that. It's not rocket science, and it's just really good cooking, and plain food really is really what you should be going for, rather than the processed all the time, and obviously keeping out of the takeaway.
Yeah.
Not too much of the McDonald's.
Yeah, everybody understands the language of winners, though, especially in racing. So if you're helping people to get winners, I can only presume that's good for business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Gillian, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, and Johnny's going to come back and pick some winners for us. You're listening to Friday Night Racing. You're watching us on all of our social channels, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie, or you can follow the new Twitter account at HRI Racing.
Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
Yeah, okay, so this is the part of the show where we try and make some money, but we haven't been doing so well just recently, Johnny. There was a line here, I just want to dig this out. The official line is, the drought of winners unfortunately continues after Shelter ran down the field at Leopardstown last weekend.
Shelter, yeah. Shelter was rather the antithesis. Well, actually, you're going to require a lot of Shelter this weekend, but the horse was a rather strange race. It looked like it was going to be tailed off, and then it ran on past beaten rivals. But
in keeping with the earlier talk about Richard, initially when I read this, it was like, the drought of winners unfortunately continues after Shelter ran down the field at Leopardstown. I was like, as in ran down. I was like, oh, but that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He caught them up and ran them down.
No.
It
finished down the field.
Vigilante in a 1980s bad movie.
Yeah. Shelter, not a horse to give up on, but yeah, Shelter, drought, we're in a bit of a lean spell at the moment, but that's how it goes, you know.
The Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Fund remains at €7,549 stubbornly. Gillian, do you get winners from jockeys kind of saying, thanks, I've got one of guys
giving up asking?
Is that how it works?
No, unfortunately.
So your information is no better than ours, it turns out. No. Okay, plenty happening on the home front this weekend with the Tote-sponsored Leopardstown card tomorrow. There's the 3-day October Festival at Galway and the 2-day Bank Holiday weekend meeting from Wexford. So great weekends racing all around the country. Plenty of international Group 1 action as well. Aidan O'Brien is well represented at Doncaster, Mooney Valley and Longchamp.
Yeah, the Doncaster race and the Vertum Futurity Trophy Stakes, I don't think they'll mind me saying, it used to be called the Racing Post Stakes, but this race was notable in that every entry earlier in the week at the 5-day stage was by Aidan O'Brien except one. Now, some people were kind of giving out about Aidan's dominance, but as is being pointed out, well, Aidan's actually really supporting the race. What are the British trainers doing? They had one potential runner, which is Kamiko, who's a 6-to-1 shot. So Aidan has an unbelievable record in it. It's going to be a fairly strange spectacle. We've had a few races with Jigginstown dominating of late, but Aidan will likely win this. Mogul's been very impressive. The ground are quite testing at Doncaster today. They've had a lot of rain over there as well. It's actually been more testing in Britain, I think, than Ireland over the last month or so. But it's getting into proper testing ground now. But Donnacha O'Brien, you know, he's past winners of the race. would include Casamento, Camelot, St Nicholas Abbey. I remember him winning it very well 10 years ago now, the late St Nicholas Abbey. Won the last two with Magna Grecia and Saxon Warrior, and this fella should take a bit of beating as well. He looks a lovely horse.
Okay, so that's the racing at Doncaster. Mooney Valley, I had to look it up there. It's Melbourne. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I've a couple of mates actually over there for that, and obviously all roads leading to the Melbourne Cup at the minute. And I'm just looking at the Hunting Horn is running over there 5:35. That would be in the morning. So if you fancy getting up, little Magic Wand is running Cape of Good Hope. Magic Wand, I think she's one of a couple of fillies that Aidan is. Magic Wand and Magical, I think, are having their last starts, and Magic Wand, I think, is going to be covered by I think both of them are going to be covered. Magical is going to be covered by No Nay Never, so she's going to have her last race shortly. But yeah, it's very good racing. I'd be amiss of me to be letting on I know anything about the Aussie horses, but Aidan has never won the Melbourne Cup, of course, so it'll be interesting to see. His son is looking to win it again, but Melbourne Cup will be on in the very near future as well.
Yeah, okay, all right. So what have you gone for this week?
Yeah, I should mention the Irish racing as well. Leopardstown tomorrow. They have a couple of good races. It's going to be quite testing. Gillian was late coming in. I'm not giving out now, but I was pretty late myself. But the traffic is bad because the weather is not good today in Dublin. It's been a proper wet day, and the ground in Galway will be very testing. The way you did that there was so like Richard, by the way. He's actually shown me mannerisms I didn't know I knew about you.
I need to watch this a bit more closely.
So it's funny when Owen is talking, look at you, and when you're talking, look at Owen, because the mannerisms are in behind that you don't even pick up on this. You actually have to watch. I've watched it. My girlfriend said to me, "You've watched this clip 10 times already," and it's like, I know, I have to watch it a lot more. Anyway, getting back to the racing, this is an interesting card. KK Hennessy, the boy Hennessy, getting the ride on Purge Afraid and O'Brien will be quite notable. Probably with the Graves, it looks a lovely Camelot horse won at Navan. That's in the 4:15 at Leopardstown. My nap is actually in Galway on Sunday. Interesting race this. It's the handicap chase, and I think this is going to be a decent price. Now, I've done a little bit of homework on the race because I was doing spotlights for the Racing Post today, and Angus King would be a very small yard. I think he's based in Clare. Could be Shannon actually, but in Clare as far as I know anyway. But he's very few horses, but he's won 2 of the last 3 renewals of this race with different. Are you looking back on the clip there? Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm just acting up.
So he's a horse called Braze. Now Braze has had his share of trainers. He's had more trainers than Insert Joke here. I think this is his 4th different trainer, if not 5th. Which is generally not a good sign. It's kind of suggests like an owner who's like, oh, the other trainer might revive him. But anyway, he's making his handicap debut in what's a bad race, and he's run 2 runs back behind Brahma Bull at Tipperary. I actually watched the race today to see how well he jumped, and there were supposed to be 10 fences in it, but 6 of them were omitted. So I was like, well. So eventually they did jump 4 fences, but he jumps very well, and I think he could be one for money. Keep an eye on this horse Braze in the 250. If you're inclined to have a bet, Gillian, on Sunday.
What kind of price do you think?
I'd say it could be 20 to 1.
All right, okay, so this is an each way.
I did say Shelter would be 50 to 1, but unfortunately Shelter ran like
a 50 to 1 shot. Yeah, okay, there's been a few of those recently. Tote customers can enjoy free tickets to Tote Fortria Chase Day at Navan. See the tote.com for more details. That is another Friday Night Racing in the books. Guys, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, no
and we'll be back next Friday at exactly the same time on all our social channels. That's 3 o'clock on offtheball.com or on the Go Loud app. And, of course, then live on every Friday evening at 8 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk. We'll see you next week. Good luck.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.